protected by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally...
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
That deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally speaking. Join us every Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Legally Speaking.
And Spectrum TV. My name is Anthony Ebuk. I'm a legal practitioner with Law Partners and Associates. Today, I have with me in the studio a community of Justice Chambers. He's a legal practitioner, he's an author, and he's a social commentator. Ekemini, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I also have with me Hannah Essien. Hannah is a teacher and a social commentator, regular face of the program. Hannah, you're welcome to the show. I didn't hear you, sir. Right, thank you very much. All right. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not autochthonous. Autochthonous we mean is not homegrown. Doesn't we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is a fallacy. And it has been variants. Now, about 35 bills were sent or assented to by the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly, and it's been sent to the President for his final assent. How does it affect retrospectively or futuristically? Today on the show, Ekemini will lead us on that, on a process of amending the Constitution. We'll also look at some aspects in the first place.
Well, the Constitution is the legal document that defines the arms of government in a country and also defines the various offices that can be occupied, in the government of the country, that is Nigeria. So you have the Constitution of Nigeria defining the three arms of government. The Constitution of Nigeria also creates the various offices beginning from the president down to the vice president, to the governors, the deputy governors, the members of the houses of assembly, members of the National Assembly, and also creates some institutions like the Independent National Electoral Commission is a creation of the Constitution. The Civil Service of the Federation is a creation of the Constitution. The Constitution is the basic law of the country. It is the law upon which the organs of government, upon which the governance of the country is legally founded. The ground norm. But let's not call it so that it doesn't confuse anybody on TV and on radio. So the Constitution basically also gives functions to the offices and to the arms of government and to the institutions created therein. It also, very importantly, defines the basic rights of the people of the country, which is usually called fundamental rights of the citizens.
Very well. What do you know about the Constitution and how do you perceive it?
I don't think it is fair to classify all non-lawyers, lump them in a group. So I believe those who know what the Constitution is.
They ought to know it.
They ought to know. I'm sure they know. I'm sure they studied a bit of the Constitution.
Now development, yes, they did.
It's proper for you to.
Okay, talk from the position of some of you that don't have any idea.
The position of teachers, for instance.
They are government teachers. They know what the Constitution is. They're people who teach God. It gives rules on how government operates. We have heard the executive, we understand that there are courts. We grow constituency projects. Then we know about the governors. But I understand that the Constitution states how the government functions. It states how you will share funds, how it functions.
Excellent. I think I almost thought you were a lawyer. Yeah,
initially she was trying to run away from the question, saying that she's not a lawyer.
Yes.
But
she's not very well within a particular judicial area. For instance, Nigeria now is a judicial area. Is arranged who does what, who takes what, who gets what, who gives what. So, like she rightly said, there are three big arms. The government, so you know the rules and regulation guiding the performance of the executive arm, and that guiding the performance of the legislative arm and the judicial arm. Yes, it can also say even the individual members of the society draw their power from the constitution, which chapter 4 says you have
your
rights. But I have been wondering, and I've been hoping I'll be able to have opportunity to ask a this question. You keep saying that and today you are celebrating the amendment of that autochthonous constitution.
Well,
unautochthonous constitution.
Okay. Well, you know, if it was in a court of law, I would have asked you when did. That's not where you're coming from. A lot of analysts have said repeatedly that our constitution is not autochthonous. In other words, something is so it is homegrown, it is our thing, our constitution. That is when it is said to be autochthonous. Indigenous, yes. So, of this country, you see, we the people of Nigeria. And it is the same thing in the Constitution of the United States of America. You see, we the people, you know, we the people, that's what, that we the people did not participate in the making of this Constitution. That this Constitution, we're only seeing it. We the people, we're only seeing it. We the people did not participate. But you see, the argument has led to amendment, the call for amendment of various sections of the Constitution, so as to give us an instrument, a document that can truly address the yearnings and aspirations and the concerns of the various people of this country, the various ethnic groups and so on. And that perhaps is why these bills have been forwarded to the National Assembly over time on its own, achieve the amendment of the Constitution. Since the Constitution is said to have been made by the people of Nigeria, an amendment of any section of the Constitution is also expected to be done by the people of Nigeria. That means,
now, coming from the regular person's point of view, you've been hearing those statements of Nigerians disowning the Constitution, clips on these questions that arise nationally and daily.
Personally, when I hear the doctrine that NEC decided to try the, federalism.
The federalism.
So when we say that it wasn't made by the people, I know that the Constitution has changed a lot from the first Constitution that was used to run the country so many years ago. Then when we talk about we the people, what I think should be contributed to how the country is run. So when we say the people did not contribute towards forming the Constitution, it can't be everybody who comes up with to how it's going to be run. So when we say we the people, the military handed it over to us. The military, were they not Nigerians? They were Nigerians. So what makes us say that because it was the military that set up the procedure for democracy? Did you contribute any idea to what has been sent to the National Assembly?
All right. So I understand where Hannah is coming from. I think I forget it was the 1979 Constitution.
It was also military.
Yes. So the most times the review of the Constitution is supposed to take 10 years, where you can overhaul it if you want to and address some issues that are cropping up on recent times. Now, when the 1999 Constitution passed, and there was a constitutional, I believe there was a constitutional review committee who went around and canvassed for memoranda. And with those memorandas, they were able to sit down to say, okay, this part of the 1979 Constitution is not very right enforcement provision, all right? The fundamental right enforcement provision of the Constitution was reviewed to say you don't need leave of. Previously, you needed to file it by yourself. So those were ingenious amendments to the 1979 Constitution, which made the 1999 Constitution more closer to the people, running them intermittently, which is where Ekemini was going to. the procedures for amending this constitution intermittently, without just calling the whole federation together to say, let's have a confab. We say the people of Oron, and if each of them holding so tight on a position that might never really mix, okay? So you will have 20 years of constitution never achieve anything, except you begin to draw some sharp lines. So let's look at those review provisions as provided for in the 1999 Constitution. Meanwhile, I think in the next 5 minutes, we open the phone lines for 222-31011. I repeat that number, 090-222-31011. There'll be an alternative number to call. The second number will be 070-454-1770. About 5:30 when we open the phone line. So, let's run through the provision for the amendments of the Constitution as provided by the Constitution.
Okay. Since the Constitution is by we, the people, and who are the people representing the we? It is the National Assembly, it is the State Houses of Assembly, and other persons that have been elected to the various offices as defined by the Constitution. And so the law requires that before any section of the Constitution can be amended, first of all, it has to be in the proposed amendment of a section of the Constitution. That is fine. That's the first step that has been satisfied. After that, the clerk of the National Assembly is expected to send copies of the proposed amendment to the various state houses of assembly. We have 36 state houses of assembly in the country, and the law requires that before a section decision to the National Assembly, at the end, the National Assembly is expected to count the number of state houses of assembly that have concurred. If it is up to 2/3 of the state houses of assembly, at that point, the National Assembly now sends it to the president for the president's signature. So it's a long process, and the law deliberately makes it a long process so as not to make it easy institution, which could be prejudicial, to the interest of a lot of people in the country. But it's not an impossible kind of procedure. Since 1999 till today, we have had 4 alterations of the Constitution, up to 2/3 of their number, allowing for this amendment. Once the amendment is for the best interest of the people, the law allows it, and once everybody in that chain agrees in the majority for the amendment, certainly the amendment will be, carried on. And that is done with the people of Nigeria that the Constitution was talking about.
All right. So, very recently there have been some moves to amend certain sections, included the review of the provision of the Constitution that says they shall not be state police, right? This is one of the things that been harped over time, that the autonomy of the various houses of assembly, which previously were under the tutelage of the executive arm of government. For instance, the governors and the federal government pays salaries and emoluments of staff justices of the various courts. So part of that is what led to some complaints. But the phone lines are now open. So if you want to call and be part of this conversation, the number to call is 09007. We are discussing the constitutional development in Nigeria as it currently stands, the amendments that have been sent, or proposed amendments that have been sent to the presidency for assent, and if you have interest on part of the confusion. So, Ekemini, some of those are the list of advocacies towards the amendment of this the Constitution. We try, because I've had cause to confront some of them to say, can you tell me some sections of the Constitution that makes you feel so bad, right? The revenue, basically, majorly, the revenue derivation formula is one of the places that people, for instance, the railway. Understand the railway will no longer be entirely federal affair, right?
It doesn't even make sense that the railway is a federal affair. It doesn't make sense at all.
But I would have thought it makes sense, because if you consider that you sit at the end.
Because I'm thinking
Okay,
you build a rail that you want to pass through your sister state.
Okay.
And you can't go into that state. You build to the end of your boundary. And sister state decides not to.
And that's it. So Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Abia State should be able to sign an agreement to say, okay, for the movement of goods from Aba in Abia State to Akwa Ibom and Cross River State, we hereby.
It's supposed to be sufficient until you have a Wike as a PDP governor, and you have an Otom as a APC governor in Akwa Ibom, and you have an LP governor in Cross River, and the three don't meet eye to eye.
Let me tell you,
and politics stand comes
in Akwa Ibom cannot agree with the APC governor in Cross River State and vice versa.
Sorry, sir. It has happened. I remember when Akpabio was in power and we couldn't build the correct road because there was no concurrence from Abia State and there was no concurrence from Cross River.
Let's not make it a party thing. That's why I said in the first place, you have decided to, you said they will agree. Because it's very different from the road thing. The road thing, even if you want to drive your car through bush, you can.
Anyway,
but the real
a lot of things should be taken away from the exclusive legislative list and allowed for the states to also participate. And I pray that the president signs it into law before he leaves. Because it is ridiculous for me that I have the ability to generate electricity as a state. And the federal government does not allow me to feed my tapism, that goes on in getting permission of the federal government. So, bills like these that have been presented.
So your challenge is the red tapeism. Why, if you remove the red tapeism, do you need a constitutional amendment? If the red tape can be removed, why do you need a constitutional amendment?
Well, I know your mind is really going to the physical red tape on the table. Sponsored by one of executive bills to the National Assembly for amendments, pointing out the difficulties the government is facing in implementing its policies as a result of this bureaucracy of putting these things only in the exclusive legislative list for the National Assembly alone to legislate. A lot of things so that the states can legislate and have the power to do this. I so wish that the issue of the maritime development is also removed from the exclusive legislative list and then placed in the concurrent legislatively, so that Akwa Ibom, for instance, can develop Ibaka deep sea port, which is a natural deep sea port. The same can happen to Lagos State. The same can happen to Cross River State or River State or any state in the littoral, part of this country.
All right. If you are trying to join us, if you're trying to join the conversation, the number to call is 090-222-31011. I repeat that number: 090. Repeat it: 070-454-17707. Sorry that I caught you in there, but you can continue on that.
So I think that there is need for the president that is almost leaving, that people oriented, that are designed to be able to take us from where we are to where we should be. And therefore, I expect that the president should see merit in most of these bills.
Well,
for those that he doesn't see merit, well, he can refuse his assent.
I have some difficulties because the way you're saying it, whatever you did at the constitutional amendment stage, if the president doesn't find pleasure in assenting to it, then he dies there. Well, I don't think that should be the position.
No, but,
because every bill that goes to the presidency can be.
Yeah, there's provision for even when the president
refuses to assent,
the houses meet and override.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the speaking.
Because it's, I don't know whether it was anything among the legal profession. Please, I heard what you said containing the power bill. The president has signed it in last month into law. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
I didn't hear what you said about
yes.
The point I'm making here is a legal point. Finally stops on the table of the president, and the president has the prerogative to say, this bill, I do not like the font of what you have typed to present the form, and he rejects it. Nothing can be done.
Hello, you're to legally speaking. Yes, you're to legally speaking.
Hello. Please, let me find out. I think that President, they are signing the deal or they are wanted to sign it. That is the reason that I wanted to know for the 3 cities in Nigeria in Akwa Ibom State. Because if the Onibon right now, we have wanted to have our power plan in EDD.
So about just enjoy your life.
So you know,
Okay,
Anna was talking about
these are-
the fact that the National Assembly has the power to veto the president and so on. Beautiful statement. But in reality, the National Assembly of Nigeria does not veto the president.
They have
The last time the National Assembly of Nigeria vetoed him and signed it into law, and that's why we have the NDDC today. I do not remember any other time in recent time that the National Assembly has gathered the courage to veto the president.
No, but when you say
not this National Assembly,
when you
I
say
have not
courage,
seen
because
any-
angry and you're trying to bait him not to get angry about the vetoing. I don't think this president is in that mode. If he's not in agreement with what you say, and you go ahead to say, well, we find merit in it, he wouldn't be angry. After all, was he not the president?
I'm talking about the president saying, gentlemen, I have the right to refuse and I hereby refuse. That's fine. But the Constitution gives the National Assembly the power to recall that refused
that's
bill.
what I wanted you to
And then
say.
pass it again. They just have the concurrence of the members, 2/3, and it becomes law. Not this one.
But you mentioned
that
that
has-
instance when they did it.
That's
now,
a long
say
time
we have the
ago.
NDA. So what stops?
Obasanjo
The
was
law
president
is there.
many years back. I'm talking about the recent National Assembly. Tell me the last time they vetoed
No,
the
what's
president.
what's
Tell
your
me the last
implication?
time.
Now, because if the
So the
president,
implication now is that we have
yes,
it.
you exactly,
And that is why a
I-
very
I'd rather would
beautiful
think-
no, let me learn. That is why a beautiful bill is drafted, passed by them, sent to the state houses of assembly, people-oriented bill, sent back to the president. The president refuses. The National Assembly appears incapacitated
No.
to say, Your Excellency, thank you for refusing this bill. But for us, as people representing the totality of the people of this country, we are going to pass this into law because the Constitution allows
now
us
can
to
you,
pass
can
it
you
into
tell
law.
me any bill that has gone through that process? Because I remember during the period when you had the INEC bills, the president came out strong and said, these are my strong reasons. And majority of them would see the strong reasons. Okay, for instance now, this bill that they brought, they said we want to review the composition of the Security Council. And you know it didn't include heads of the parliament, former past heads of the parliament. And it's supposed to be a Security Council meeting, and you have former presidents. Why are you making it very executive without any input from the legislative arm? All right. Now, if you present such, and the president sits back, looks at it, and tells you it's supposed to be an executive thing, the security is an executive tenor. National Assembly could have a president of the National Assembly every week if you choose to impeach him, right? So in one administration, 1/9 assembly, you could have 7 speakers or 7 Senate presidents, all right? Administrators of securities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forward and those
So,
security
so
in their
when if
time.
the president brings that back to the House, do you think the House will be able to challenge that managed security without necessarily making it too rowdy?
You see, the president has the right in law to refuse to sign any bill into law. Okay, because the president is not. I hereby say no, and that's beautiful.
Well,
Yes.
you
Now,
also
that's the point.
before you close that point.
No, let me land. That's the point I'm making, that the president has that right to say no. We looked through this before we passed it. We sent it to the various houses of assembly before they passed, and they less than 2 months to live there, and then come to this other side of the country and be with us. That they will not be in the National Assembly the next time. I think less than 60 days.
A lot of them are still going back.
A lot of them are not still going back. Give them some strong things using the street
I
language.
think you have a problem with this.
Using the
as
street
well.
language. No. So I am talking to these present members of the National Assembly that have been elected and they are going in.
They're not
When
your
you-
members, they've not been sworn in.
They are going in, okay?
The elect-
All the sections to see the powers you have as members of the legislature, so that when you go, you know when to say no and when to say yes. You know when to collapse your ideas with the ideas of the executive, marry them together in the best interest of the people of this country. What happens, sadly, And I said this with members of the National Assembly, they sleep, they want their seats.
I don't see
and most of them have not spoken at all in the last 4 years. Just close your eyes.
Listen to what others are saying.
All you're supposed to do is
it's only when you're maybe
bill. So if you find people bringing some very obnoxious God travel out of the country.
No, that for me is a slave bill.
Okay,
it's
that bill.
That bill.
I actually talked to a medical.
That bill. When I hear that bill, I just put my mind in years or 10 years before you can be free. I see that kind of thing in this bill that has worked in Nigeria for 5 years. Even when the conditions that you have, let him refuse that one.
He refuses it at the National Assembly.
You see, we look at
their heads to get
people already again. See, that is not the kind of bill we need as a country. We are looking to.
The National Assembly had pushed the bill for the autonomy of the legislative arm, and the presidency has signed that of the autonomy of the legislative arm.
That upon the abolition of slave trade, some slaves refused to go home. That's what I see in some of the things that.
But was it good that they stayed back? These black Americans have stayed back.
Plantation. I'm not even talking about leaving the plantation. I'm going to have free life outside, and some refuse to leave the plantation. I say, my fool, you refuse to be free. That's fine. But you see, that's what I see in the refusal on autonomy of the local governments in this country. They still say, no, we don't want autonomy. We like to run on your apron all the time. Whatever you give us, we'll take that. Some members, charge of the executive, should be independent. They should be able to do what the law allows him to do and does it freely. But you don't also want to have that kind of freedom. It baffles me most times than any other person in society. But at the same time, it is not the end. Any bill that has been refused by the various houses of assembly now, it doesn't mean that it cannot be represented by the next assembly. It doesn't mean that the next president cannot also make the same proposal, because the bill that seeks to free the local develop, that will see to the development of the local government area. Not only a situation where we have local government, that the local government chairman is only able to cut grasses during 7-day celebration. That's the Children's Day celebration. After that, he doesn't have the money again to do that. Yet, that local government, earlier we freed that system of government through legislative intervention. I think that would be the best for that arm of government.
You say we free, but you just mentioned that they don't want to be free. I am thinking when you allow local governments to be autonomous.
This issue of state policing. It's been on the front burner for a long time, and it appears both the federal government and even the members of the National Assembly are dragging their feet on the states.
I expect that the experts should be brought in here from within and outside Nigeria. What's applicable outside? What's the type that can really function? That was created without taking note of a lot of indices. When you look at the history of nation states in bogus as this, and they have similarity in a lot of things.
Have you heard about the
Russia is not a small country.
You see, Russia is not a small country, but the homogeneity in the Russia
affects policing.
It does affect policing a lot. Let me tell you, you live in a country where an average policeman cannot go into a particular house, and that's why ours is a peculiar situation.
No,
that's why I think that in the issue of state policing, but if Nigeria is still going to struggle with state policing, then we need to look at it again before the president can sign it into law and then give us the state policing.
Because I think Nigeria equally have such powers at the state level, which is why you see a lot of analysts dare not criticize their governors. They be attacking the presidency. They are living in a. Just take that power to Rivers State today and imagine what will happen. So maybe that's the question we need to really discuss about. Can state police really truly work in Nigeria, despite the insecurity, and become nothing compared to the tyranny that you will see with the state governors if they now have a state police.
Excesses of governors will also be curbed the governors may not be able to really, bring out their funds, will not have the liberty to do, as he pleases, because this is a democracy.
Yeah, with the essence of democracy in the first executive, the governor being so powerful, it means that something is wrong with the other arms.
Yes.
No,
they're not doing what they're supposed to.
We have mental. I want to believe that we have exhausted the conversation for the day. We'll adjourn further conversation to next week Friday, right? Okay, so you don't even have to say the last word. Next week Friday, when we'll come back with a new version of Legally Speaking. My name is Anthony Duka. I've been with the community and Hannah Esen. Until same time next week, I hope everything will do
powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria police force, which shall be administered, organized and supervised by the Nigerian police
for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you.
This is an adversary proceeding.
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord,
Nigeria, legally speaking. Join us every Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.